Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kai and I am the host of the Crochet Corner podcast here on YouTube. And if you see me wearing the same shirt as my podcast, it's because they were filmed on the same day. So I have wanted for a while to start a little within our Let's Talk segment of the channel. I wanted to go do a couple episodes that are, I'm just gonna adjust the camera really quick, that are dedicated to my experiences as a first-time sock knitter, for anyone who is a predominant crocheter like me, who really wants to maybe get into knitting, or specifically sock knitting, because that is the only reason why I learned how to knit. Recently I just got into making knitting shawls. So we'll see where that goes. But for the most part, I really only wanted to learn how to knit so that I could make socks. I did try my hand at crochet socks, but I just didn't really like the way that they felt or they looked. So I picked up some knitting needles and I learned via YouTube how to do it myself. And there's not really any videos from a beginner's perspective that go into the experiences of how it feels to knit a sock for a first time. A lot of the videos that I've seen are from people who are really well versed in knitting, sock knitting. So I want to give you guys my perspective from a predominant crocheter who really, I didn't even try to, I knitted a blanket once, but for the most part, I don't really know too much about like all the terminology and things like that. I kind of just thrust myself into there, and I just want to talk about that experience with you all today. So if you are like me and you are interested, please stay tuned. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and like. And if you click that little bell, it's usually on the right hand side. You will get notifications for whenever I upload a video. And I would really appreciate it and like to welcome you to my little crochet knitting family. So if you have watched the podcast, then you know that I have just been knitting a storm. I have 2 shawls on the needles. I have 2 pairs of socks on the needle. Well, like 2 pairs and then like 1 sock on the needle. So I've really been delving into my knitting journey because I really want to make all the socks. I wanted to get fast enough at making socks to where I can do 1 sock per month. I think that is achievable, and if I practice, I can definitely for sure get there. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is what I noticed was really important about jumping into sock knitting. In my opinion, it is very important for you to do research. Don't just think that it's something that you can jump into, because there are so many things that play a part into sock knitting. That is from the needle size, gauge, and the yarn, everything. Because if one of those things is off, then your sock is going to be off. So I have a prime example of that. So I use a 2.25 millimeter needle, and let me get that out for you. Oh, that one's all. Okay, so this is the one that I use. I don't think this is the smallest needle that there is, but maybe it's the second to smallest. I don't really know. But that is the size of the needle that I'm using. It is a Chiagoo red lace 2.25 millimeter knitting needle. I'm trying to read it on the side, but I can't see it, and I don't know what that is in American terminology, but that's what that is. And for this one, I'm doing socks 2 at a time with a 40-inch cord. We'll talk about that much later on in the series, but I want to start off with my second pair of socks that I ever knit, because the first pair I knit very close to each other, and for the most part everything lined up, so they're not really a good example because from start to finish they were the same size. But this is where it comes, and I showed this on my podcast. So this is the first one of these socks I knit. This is from West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. It doesn't have a color, but it is their 75% wool, 25% 25% nylon with 35% BFL. This is a, let's see what size it is, because that's really important. Okay, from what I've been learning, they said to 4-ply, it feels like a size 1 yarn to me. But then again, I don't know, and it doesn't say here on here. But anyway, so I knit this Turkish cast on. I cast it on 8 stitches, and then I increased to 32. And the reason why I increased to 32 is the first pair of socks I knit, I did an increase of 34 stitches. So a total of, ooh, my brain just shut off on me. Sorry, a total of 68 stitches, and they were way too big. So I decreased to 32, and this one was way too small. So the things that I did wrong was that, one, my tension was tighter because I had gotten more comfortable knitting. So I went from a loose gauge to a more tighter gauge. Also, when casting on the stitches for the toe, I didn't cast on enough. So for an adult foot, you want to cast on somewhere between, like, I would say 14 to 16 stitches. That's a really comfortable toe. And that would ensure that your sock is wide enough to accommodate your foot. And with that being said, that is why it's very, very important for you to do research on the type of yarn that you're using. And plus, the type of yarn that I used for my first pair of socks might have been a different weight from this pair of socks. So it really, really is important for you to do your research on the type of yarn that you want to use, what needles is best for that yarn, and also writing down, once you find that perfect little recipe, writing down your increases, if you have to do decreases, like if you're doing an afterthought heel, and how many stitches you're counting on. So research is very important, or this happens. So this is the second sock. Now, I knit this 2 years prior. I just finished this one yesterday. But look, I couldn't remember how much I cast on, so I cast on 10 stitches, and with the Turkish cast on, and I increased to 32. And this sock is way bigger than this one. I don't know if you guys can really see that, but this sock is way bigger than this one. So this one fits me perfect, and this one does not fit me at all. So research. Don't just go off of what you see on YouTube, because YouTube is good for instructional purposes. See how that's sticking out from the side? And YouTube is good for when you want to learn certain stitching techniques, but you always want to make sure you do the research for you so that you get the best measurements for your foot. So that is what I really think is really important, because you might find, and you also want to take note on what needle size is appropriate for your yarn. So another one of my thing is I didn't pay attention to that at all. So according to my ball band, it says that a 3.25 millimeter knitting needle is perfect size for that yarn, and I used a 2.25. So that also could have played a part in why one sock came out bigger than the other one, and why the one fits and the other doesn't. So first time sock knitters, please keep an eye out on that. Make sure you're doing your research and writing everything down. I personally have a notebook that I write all of my, like, whenever I'm designing, or say, so I can keep track of everything, or like if I don't have my notebook on hand, I'll use my phone. So I think that is super duper important for you to keep in mind. Number 2, choosing the right yarn. So I have knit one sock in acrylic yarn. It was just a test when I was first learning how to do the Turkish cast on and the Fliegel heel. So I don't have any problems with acrylic yarn at all. Y'all know I am a Red Heart fan to the core. They need to sponsor me, because that's all I use is Red Heart. So I don't have any problems with acrylic yarn, but what you want to keep in mind is that when you use a natural fiber, when you stretch it out, once you wash it, that natural fiber is going to shrink back into shape. So, and I do completely understand that sometimes natural fibers cannot be in most people's budgets. So I don't think you should be deterred from knitting Socks with acrylic, you could definitely give it a try, but also keep in mind that with those natural fibers, the animal fibers, that's what's going to happen. So when this band, because this cuff is knit in 2x2 ribs so it can stretch, but when it gets out of shape, all I have to do is wash it and make sure I dry it appropriately, and it's going to shrink back down to this shape. And that's how natural fibers keep their shape. But with those type of fibers, you also have to keep in account that sometimes you're allergic to it. So in this next part, I am going to show you some really cool yarn that is very cost effective that you can purchase if you are allergic to wools and animal fibers and things like that, so that you can go ahead and get those socks started. So Premier Yarns has this really, really great yarn. It's called Wool Free Sock. And this is from Premier Yarns. I got this from Hobby Lobby. This does not contain any wool. It is acrylic fiber and another fiber called PBT. I'm not too sure what PBT is, but what I'm assuming is it's that thing that gives it elastic, because this is very, very, very elastic. And you could stretch it and it snaps right back into place. So I'm assuming that's what the PBT is. This is a good alternative if you cannot handle the animal fibers, or for ethical reasons, if you feel like that's just not something that you want to partake in, you can go to Premier Yarns and get this. And it is very cost effective. And they say that you need 2 balls of these for 1 adult sock. I believe that's what the pattern said in the back. Yes, it says 2 balls of wool-free sock for 1 pair of adult socks. So I actually have a pair on my needles. I lost the ball band. I have it in 2 separate cakes. I believe it is actually 1 ball that I put in 2 separate cakes. It looks like a lot of yarn to me. Once I finish this, I will let you guys know if I can get 2 socks out of it. But that I'm not too sure. So a little bit about this. Let me read the band to you. It is machine wash and tumble dry. So unlike animal fibers where you have to hand wash and dry, you can actually just throw this straight in the washer and dryer. It's a 50-gram ball. It's 93% acrylic and 7% PBT. So that is a good and cost efficient alternative if you are allergic to wools, 2, you ethically feel like that's not, animal fiber is not what you want to purchase, and 3, if you can't afford to buy if you're me doing a lot of research on YouTube and like skeins of yarn being like $30, that's not exactly in my budget at this moment. And so this was definitely a good purchase. I forgot how much it was. I'm going to do some research and I'll get that price to you, and it'll be in the description box below, as well as some links to where you can purchase your own. Another thing is that Patons Kroy is another really good sock brand. It is what I predominantly use because that's what I have access to at my Hobby Lobby. So I use a lot of Patons Kroy sock yarn. It is $6 for a ball, but you get 50 grams, and this is enough for me to make 2 socks out of this. I know that I'm not too sure if maybe I'm doing it wrong, because a lot of people say for 50 grams you need 2 of them for 1 sock, but I have made 2 adult socks out of a mixture of Patons Kroy and another Bernat, and it worked perfectly fine for me. Like, I still have so much left over that I could probably get another pair of socks out of this. But Patons Kroy, I highly recommend. The way that the yarn feels in your hand and the amount of slip is perfect for first time knitters. It's not rough. It's not too rough. It's got a nice texture to it. Also, it is very accessible. You don't even have to, you can order this online, but if you go to your local Hobby Lobby, they have shelves of this. And all you need to get is 2 balls of it. That'll cost you probably about $13 for 2 balls, and you'll still have a lot left over for future projects. So if you feel that you can afford like maybe the hand dyed and the indie dyed yarns and things like that, get you some Patons Kroy. Patons Kroy makes really good sock yarn, and I highly, highly recommend it. And they have really beautiful colors. This one is just in a plain color. It's called Flax. But my favorite colorway from them, which I did discuss in a podcast, it's called Singing the Blue Stripes. And it's this really, really pretty blue striped color. And and Hobby Lobby carries a lot of their different colors. This is what it looks like when you work it up. This is what the stripes look like. It's very pretty. Very, very pretty. So definitely take a look at my first time sock knitters. Check out Patons Kroy. They make really good sock yarn. It is very cheap. Definitely for sure affordable if you're first time starting out, because I would rather ruin a $6 ball of yarn than a $32 ball of yarn, so keep that in mind. Another one is Bernat Sock. I worked with Bernat Sock when I did my very first pair of socks. I mixed this with the Singing the Stripes blues. It was really cute. It's all the way over there, so I'm not going to grab it. And I will say that this is also a very pleasant yarn to work with. I don't know the price point, considering this was gifted to me by Shirley Knits 123, and I do appreciate that. But I will say that as far as texture goes, it's definitely much, much softer than Patons Kroy. So if you're looking for something really soft, really, really soft, but with the same, quality, I would definitely pick up some Bernat Sock. And I'm pretty sure you could just get this off their website. I will put that information in the description box below. So that's all about yarns, guys. Make sure you're also paying attention to your yarn weights. Like these are super fine #1 yarns, and then the recommended needle size is a 3.25. It's the same as the West Yorkshire spinners. So because the thing is with yarn weights being so important is because sometimes you don't need as many stitches as you think. If you have a finer type of yarn weight, it's going to take more stitches, versus if you have a bulkier weight yarn, it takes less stitches. So things like yarn size, needle size, gauge, counting, writing things down, they're all very important so that you can make sure you're getting the same sock each time you make a sock. Now, the thing about gauge is I don't really follow gauge. I kind of just, and I'm not completely recommending this. I kind of just figure it out as I go, but I still think the research on gauge is very important. And if you want to be successful in your knitting journey, that you'll take the time to make sure that your gauge is on check. But like I said, I don't do that. It's definitely up to you. So the last thing I want to talk about is just the knitting needles in general. I kind of went over them a little bit, but as far as the sizes, but I'm talking about the types. So I use Chiagoo needles, the red lace. I love them. The cord is nice and fluid because I predominantly work my socks in magic loop. So having a stiff cord with magic loop is like pulling out teeth. Impossible. No. So when you're picking your method of how you want to do your socks, whether it's magic loop or DPNs, I specifically am going to speak on magic loop because I have never used DPNs and I don't think I ever will because they're scary. But if you're going to do magic loop, you want to make sure that your cord is fluid, it can move, it can bend. That is where I see that you should really make an investment. It is in some good needles. Now you can get away with yarn, absolutely. You do what you got to do within your budget, baby. But as far as needles, I highly suggest you invest in some really good needles. And I recommend Chiagoo's. I also just recently purchased some Knitter's Pride needles. I haven't used them yet, but I'll definitely do a review on them once I have. But I can for sure let you know that Chiagoo needles are good and they are not that expensive. So I'll also leave some links in the description box below for some Chiagoo needles if you feel like you want to take a look at that. But if you are already a knitter who's watching this, been knitting for some years, drop some recommendations in the comments below so that we can let everybody know what the best type of needles are. So yes, guys, please always invest in some good needles. You want to invest in some good stitch markers, progress keepers. I don't tend to use those things because I'm lazy, but I'm seeing the benefits now. I'm using them now, and I'm definitely seeing the benefit. So with that, guys, I'm gonna leave it here. I'll have some more videos on the first time sock knitting and what I recommend coming up soon. But if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My information is down below, or leave a comment. And I'm pretty quick with responding, so I'll definitely get back to you if you have any questions for me. But thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.